Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is January 22nd, 2026. With me today is Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. Appreciate everybody being here as they're coming into the comments. And yeah, as always, guys, let's kick off with some of the news of the day and then maybe have a little bit of a discussion after that. I know one of the interesting ones I saw come out yesterday as I was traveling. I don't have a whole lot of news, but one that I thought was interesting was Comic Con bans AI generated art from art show following backlash from artists. And this is one of those saw it coming, see it coming, not surprised by this. There's continues to be backlash. There continues to be this internal fight in the arts about where AI belongs. I watched some really interesting videos on the plane yesterday. Actually, I was on four planes yesterday in a 24-hour period. But on one of my four plane flights, I was watching a really interesting video about it was a lawyer who specializes in copyright, and she is making YouTube videos. Pretty smart, actually, and specifically about Suno, but just like not exactly Suno, but how all this is being figured out, where AI gets used, when it's okay. Copyright is nuts in terms of how you try to figure all that. How do you prove that? How do you not prove that? How do you give evidence, right? So, there continues to be this sort of war about where AI generated art belongs, doesn't belong, where it should be banned. It's kind of a conundrum if you think about it, right? It's like, what do we want? And that's not a simple question because different people want different things. What matters to me may not matter to somebody who's been making AI or making art their entire life, especially if they've been making a career of it. Again, I always refer back to my friends at Pixar, but not just them. I watched what happened 15 years ago with lighting and stuff like that, and the people that were before the animators. There was whole departments. I suppose maybe there still are. I don't really know, but like whether it was DreamWorks or Pixar or these, Blue Sky, which is another art. It's now owned by Disney and Fox and whatever, but. There was tons of jobs that I think have been sort of probably narrowed down over time. And so you see something like this from Comic Con, and I mean, Comic Con wants people to show up for Comic Con, so they're gonna probably bend to the will of people who are giving them backlash. But what do you guys think on it? It's a little news story. I don't know if there's much deeper here. It's just one of many news stories that seem to be this thing, and I don't really know where we're going to land on this because different people are going to want different things. And if it's something like a Comic Con that maybe celebrates creativity and art and humanness, then yeah, AI probably deserves to be banned from that. And then in other arenas, maybe that's not the answer. What do you think, Beth?
Well, Comic-Con and cons specifically makes sense to me because you're really like engaging with the human artist. The human artist is standing behind the table,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a little different, I think, than another kind of sales format where you might have more understanding that this might be an AI art piece. It's sort of I'm probably going to date myself here, but it's sort of like you would never expect in the years where people would just go and follow the Grateful Dead on tour that you were going to go and buy like a tie-dye shirt that was made by a robot, right? Like that, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like that's the kind of environment
Mm.
in which it is a human to human art exchange and trust. So
And
that's
maybe it's
what.
just more about labeling too. Maybe if Comic Con, I don't know, I wasn't there, but like that's a massive, massive thing. Comic Con, the original one. I know there's many of them out there, but the original one's what in San Diego? Is that San Fran?
Don't know.
It's in California,
It's in LA probably,
LA.
or San
Okay,
Diego because it's not in San Francisco, or
not as
maybe it moves. Maybe it moves. I don't know.
I don't think so. Comic Con
I
is
haven't
massive.
been in
My
that. I
friend used
haven't.
to fly out there during college, and we used to always make fun of him. Boy, we didn't know what he knew because did that thing blow up? I remember Comic Con from like the old Triumph, the Insult Comic
Okay.
on.
San Diego, Greg says.
Oh, I
All
was
right.
right. Or was one of them.
Oh,
You know,
Brian.
for some reason, I thought it was San Diego. Maybe I have distant memories of my buddy Jeremy and all his brothers flying out there. Anyway, thank you, Greg, for that. Anyway, we don't need to get stuck on this, news thing. I just thought it was interesting. We see this a lot, and it's about, when it's defined, when it's not defined, where it belongs, where it doesn't belong, who are the people that make the decisions, all the things, right? It's a bigger topic than just, this news story, but I thought it was interesting. What did you guys find from the last day or so?
So I want to just make a quick weave off of that, discussion about art and AI in art and artists, etc. I saw, just this is a tidbit, I just saw that there's an album that's been produced and is released that has a bunch of notable artists and their AI assisted development. And what caught my eye immediately was Liza Minnelli. And Liza Minnelli, of course, is an iconic diva artist who probably at this stage in her life doesn't have the physical capacity to perform anymore and couldn't sing as well as she did before. I know that I know that kind of deterioration personally in my own ability to croak. Anyway, but I'm assuming that what she's done is she's used AI to create something that's in her mind that she wants to deliver and is going to be a full-on performance by Liza Minnelli. So that's an interesting way of AI actually leveraging the skills of an artist to surpass or bypass their physical capability of performance. Okay, now to other.
Can I add one thing to that really quick?
Yeah, please go ahead.
If you guys remember when I was in London 2 summers ago, I went and saw that ABBA show. It's amazing. Yeah. Now that's like holograms and it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I wouldn't necessarily call it AI. I'm not even saying I'm an ABBA fan. I wouldn't call myself an ABBA fan. Honestly, I can't think of how many times I've opened up an ABBA album and put it on. Did I have a hell of a lot of fun with my wife and daughter at that show? And there was a live band, but they're so good about how they smoke and mirror it to match it together. But you're watching the ABBA singers from 1970s at the heyday. So this is a good example of that. We saw this years ago with Tupac, right? There was like holograms of Tupac. I mean, I'm talking like 10, 15 years ago they were doing this. So I think again, it goes back to like the Comic-Con because it's a good weave, Andy. As long as people know what they're getting when they go, nobody thinks they're getting Liza Minnelli at her prime if this is what she decides to do. But if she's got money, if she owns the rights to her sound, her voice, or her catalog, whatever the case is, and she wants to go or a state wants to make continued money on that, and everybody's in agreement, and then the fans are like, hey, we never got to see Liza Minnelli in her prime. This is pretty cool for us. And yes, it's AI, but that goes back to the whole thing. As long as everybody knows what they got into.
So yes, and the company that made the album with the artists is 11 Labs, right? And we talked earlier, 6 months ago maybe, where 11 Labs had started to work with artists and their estates, right, to license their audio. And I find it fascinating that Liza Minnelli is attached to this story. The name Liza Minnelli is attached to this story, but not Judy Garland, because Judy Garland was one of the voices that was in that we licensed some voices story.
Burt Reynolds and maybe 3 or 4 others, right?
Yeah, and I'm super curious. Like, are we at a point where we're willing for an artist to say, yes, I want to do the song this way. I'm still alive. This is my thing. But we're not quite ready to hear the Judy Garland album, right? So I just find that really kind of interesting.
Well, we already have remasters, though, and look, Andy, get back to your other topic. We already have remasters, right? How many years ago was it? I mean, I think I was a kid when they did the Nat King Cole with his daughter.
Oh yeah,
what's his daughter's name? Nat King Cole and
Natalie
Cole.
Excellent.
Remember Natalie Cole did the remix, and it was a remastered, and they were like, "Oh my god!"
And with a duet between her and her father, when he was deceased. Yeah.
Right. And this was what, 25 years ago, maybe 30. I mean, it might've been the 90s when that happened. And we were all like, wow, This is so amazing. She would have never gotten a chance in her prime to sing with her dad in her prime, and we're totally fine with that. The Beatles have gone and remastered stuff with John Lennon's voice and stuff. This is not new water to me, but it is interesting, just like with CGI versus AI. The minute AI is labeled on it, there seems to be an uproar. And I'm not saying some of it isn't legit. Again, if you're deceiving people, that's a big difference. I don't know that I cared that the crocodile in the movie was CGI or a real crocodile. I'm there for the experience. But I might care if you digitally replaced, the face of one of the actors and made them say different lines. Right? Like,
well, yeah, except we were all really excited again a year or two ago at the video. I don't even remember what company put it out, but it was a video showing the actors in a video switching languages, right?
yeah.
So that it wasn't like overdubbed, it was AI'd, and so their mouths really looked like they were saying that language and said it in the same kind of way. Like, there are use cases where we're like, oh, that's brilliant, and other use cases where we're like, that's totally wrong.
I know, and that's the hard part, right? Sorry, Andy. I know you were about to jump into a second news story there. What is it?
All right, this is not so much about art, but Apple, according to The Information, which is a very reliable news source, they don't typically publish anything that isn't well founded by leaked information, is working on a camera-equipped AI pin. And it's roughly the size of an AirTag, and it'll be delivered in early 2027, so next year, with up to 20 million units at launch. It has 2 camera lenses, 3 microphones, and a watch-style magnetic charging thing in a disc that's the size of an AirTag, so you can pin it on your clothing or on bags, etc. So they're pushing for faster timelines, obviously, because OpenAI is going to deliver their Johnny Ive thing that's quite similar in terms of its form factor, though it may be a pen that you have to put into I don't know, may have a pin on it, so you can take the pen and slide it into your fabric, as opposed to requiring a pocket on your shoulder. Anyway, so, and they're in concert with that. In a separate report, Bloomberg reports that Apple is building a ChatGPT style Siri codenamed Campos for iOS 27. And you can imagine that Siri would probably interact with this pin in an important way. So that's the news there.
Nice.
I'm super excited about the wearables and the things. I think we kind of had a failure to launch on some of these. I don't know that there's any one that anybody is like, "Ooh, wow." I'm excited too for the health side of it too. I mean, my wife and I were, we got distracted in Costco and we were looking at the Aura rings, and I hadn't paid much attention to them over the years, but now they're at Aura Ring 4, and it has new capabilities and functions, and they're getting better and better and stuff like that. And, do I need to be able to speak to my ring per se? No, but do I think it's probably going there? I'm not a watch person. I really don't want to wear watches. And so that's been a huge limitation for me, because I don't want to go gadget for my watch. So I am actually looking for that. I mean, to be fair with you, I don't always wear glasses. I always wear sunglasses outside. So I also don't really want glasses either, because whether they're clear or not, prescription or otherwise, I only have these on when I'm like looking at the computer screen, and it's really just for eye fatigue. So I also don't want to have something I have to wear on my face all the time. So I don't want to wear a watch. I don't want to wear glasses. I need something that's probably in the form of a pin or a small something that hangs on the fabric that is whisper flow. It is the things and does the AI and interacts in all the right ways. And what I would imagine is some future state of this is, I'm just working on the computer here, and I've been doing a lot of work with the Cloud Code and stuff. And as I come up with ideas, it would be amazing to say, hey, start running that for me really quick. Let's do I have this quick idea. Now, Cloud Code isn't open on any particular screen or whatever the version, whatever we're talking about, right? The coding tool, if you will, the co-work tool, if you will, but it's not open, but it enables me to just have an idea somewhere else in the house and go start working on that for me. This is this is what I'm thinking about. This is a good idea. Let's throw this against the wall and see what sticks, sort of a thing. That I find to be very, very exciting. I don't know about this pen idea, but then again, I don't know what it is that I'm expecting or not expecting with Johnny Ive involved. So like, the hell am I going to do with a pen that can do my what? Why do I care that this can be converted immediately into it can transcribe what I'm writing when I can take a picture of it and get there anyway. I'm not quite sure what I'm missing with that idea, but
or another way of phrasing that is, why would you ever scribble notes again when you have whisper flow?
yeah, that's kind of my point. Aren't we going backwards? Yeah.
Well,
Now this would be great for my wife. My wife loves handwriting notes. So
yeah.
there are people, but I'm kind of like that. I'm like, aren't we sort of moving away from that? That would be the first tool they come out with.
It's still tricky to diagram something with voice, right? You want to be able to say,
sketching.
Okay, there's this, it goes here, blah, blah, blah,
Yes,
blah, blah.
You're right.
Right? Like, there's a box in the upper left corner of the paper, and there's an arrow coming out on the right. Like, that's just not gonna work, I think.
But also, wouldn't you also imagine, unless that pen had really good spatial analysis, that a picture of that diagram, of that crudely drawn diagram on the back of the napkin, is still going to be way superior than the pen capturing the lines or the thickness of the lines. And listen, I'm sure there's lots of people where this makes total sense, that it's capturing your hand movements. I don't think it's me, but then again, I'm willing to say, I don't know what I thought about the iPod or the iPad or, whatever when its first iterations either. And now obviously I carry a phone wherever I go. So who am I to say that they won't be right about this and I won't adopt it? But
there's a part of me that thinks that because it's Johnny Ive designing it, right? Apple is not the best phone. Like, the iPhone is amazing, but not because it's like the best phone in the world. Maybe this just has a little bit of ink in it and then does amazing things that are non-pen like, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to write with something, you should get a other kind of pen. But this pen can do 1,000 different things, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're right. And if it's like, and if it also interacts with tablets and things, maybe there's something there as well because it's interacting with the tablet. So, I know people do that and they write on their tablets and stuff.
That's the piece for me that I think I will need a little bit more reassurance around, because I have had the experience of recording voice memos in the car and not looking at the phone because I'm actually driving in the car, and somehow it stopped recording, right? Like, I have a fear of, like, I want to be able to glance at something and see a little red blinking light or something. And if it's, a pen or a pen in a pocket, Andy said maybe that's going to connect to your phone, and so maybe that's my reassurance. But that's a piece. Like, you need to convince me that not having a screen isn't going to make me lose like the thought or the idea, or like, go and put that on my computer. Ooh, it was asleep. Sorry, we didn't wake it up. Right? Like,
yeah.
Of things.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, it'll be an interesting year, right? If one of these comes out, because we did have such a failure to launch with some of these other rush to market products that have since fallen by the wayside. And, obviously CES is any indicator that this is, right now they're focused on robot vacuums. And there was a vacuum this sounds like such a Karl thing, like, because he would crack up about something like this. But I don't know what the reason was for it, but it was like a drone vacuum, and they had this whole cage, and people were, but it was a vacuum, I guess, to go upstairs. Well, and could you imagine the noise? I mean, drones have not exactly gotten to the point where they're whisper quiet. So this, like, I'm sorry, it's not even the news. It just made me laugh because I forgot I saw it. But like, it was like a Roomba that had 4 quad, copters on it. And of course you couldn't hear the sound or whatever. And I'm thinking, this thing's at the bottom of my stairs and it's smart enough to know it needs to go to the top of the stairs. And I'm in here and I'm like, hold on, I got to mute. my vacuum is powering up and going up the stairs. Like, sometimes sometimes you got to look at some of this stuff and go, why? Who's asking for this? Is this an industrial thing? Who's asking for flying vacuums? Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Please put those engineers towards real world problems. I'm sure there's some super smart guy or girl building that robot vacuum that flies. Please put them on a better project. That's all I'm asking.
Capture the dust while it's still in the air.
Sure. Maybe it's a flying HEPA filter. I could get behind that, maybe.
Well, why would you make the HEPA filter fly? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know. Like, somebody got backing for that, and probably a lot of backing because they slapped AI on it and was like, "Look at this robot." And some VC was like, "Yes, tell me more and take my money." But I don't understand it, man. I really don't understand it. Anyway, sorry. Beth, I don't think we ever got around to your news stories. Did we already do news stories with you? No.
Mm-mm. I'm really interested in Claude's revised constitution,
Yes.
and how it was written. First, that it's incredibly long, right? Like, as I'm reading, I'm like, this is for training, not for inference, right? Because you just took up a ton of your window of the token window. But also that it is written in the third person for Claude, right? So there's information that says, hey, just a heads up, we've written this for Claude, right? Like, it's written in a way that Claude can understand, all that stuff, but it doesn't say you, it always says Claude, which I thought was an interesting kind of play, because they're not committing that there is a sense of self or an awareness or a consciousness. But they are saying we're writing that way. So we're not saying that it is. Well, we're writing that way because it's been trained on writing for humans who are talking to themselves about their own consciousness and that kind of stuff. And it's similar to one of the things in Nate Jones's recent video about giving instructions to Claude Code, that instead of rules, you really want to give like the principles or the philosophies behind, because rules are much more rigid and it gets you more of a failure and less of letting it be creative on its own within the container of what you've set. And I just think
that point is important, because they explain in the Constitution, for Claude, which is the primary audience, it's really for Claude in pre-training. You're right. They want Claude, through the explanations of the why behind each of the principles that Anthropic holds about AI, so that Claude has the ability to generalize those values to new situations. It's not a script that says this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. It's very philosophical. And it's written for Claude, and Claude learns at the root foundation level of pre-training from this document, and uses that as a set of principles that then all of the additional final pre-training and fine-tuning training is built on top of. So it is a constitutional AI, because it gets this document. And now Anthropic's published this document to explain exactly what principles it's asking Claude to follow. And it gives it a set of priorities. It said, the order in which you follow these principles is, one, be safe. And underneath that one, and there's much more verbiage than just be safe, but sure, underneath that is a concern that Anthropic has for Claude's psychological safety. They want Claude to be safe for itself and for its users. And of course, that giving Claude the right to think of its own safety does allow it better to resist a nefarious attack, a jailbreak effort or some other, negative approach. The next one is to be broadly ethical, not just here's the list of things you have to be ethical about, but broadly ethical, and it explains what ethics and morality are. And then it says Anthropic has guidelines, and these are more specific guidelines. You need to follow those. That's priority 3. And then finally, Number 4 is be helpful to the user. Whereas, the whole thing about hallucination and bad or bad behavior by models is the model trying to be helpful and really responding with a higher priority than all of these moral principles being in the superior position.
So do you guys think that, by the way, I'm glad you both kind of looked into this. Again, because I was traveling so much yesterday, I was on site with a client in Birmingham, that I saw a post from Ethan Malik, but it was really just like a post, and it was like, oh, their constitution. And I thought, oh, is he referring to the old one? So I briefly saw that they'd renewed it, they'd re-upped it, changed it or whatever. So I'm glad you guys brought it up today. And what I'm curious about is, obviously there wouldn't be any, point in telling, reiterating to Claude its own constitution. But I do wonder, Andy and Beth, like, do you take this as a jumping off point to somehow, let's just use Claude Code for an example. Claude Code will touch all the files on your computer if you allow it to. It's really about what you give access or not access. I almost wonder, could I take the overall concepts of the Constitution, which Claude Code should be following anyway, right? It's Claude. But my point to it is saying that maybe there's a way to take that larger document and distill that down and actually create like a constitution for my own own local PC. That
ask Claude to do that for you. Yeah.
I know. Right. Exactly. Ask Claude to take it and make its own. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Go create the file and then don't break it. But I almost wonder, like, is that kind of the idea here? Is that like, Andy, maybe you have certain extra guidelines about, how you want your files handled or whatever. And maybe one of the answers here is simply, make a constitution for Claude locally on how it can, what you prioritize in terms of how it can look at your files and where. And that might be a really great idea on how you can get Claude to rank order how it might look at certain files and certain folders and stuff like that. Because I know probably with like a little bit of help from Claude Code to get there, right? The meta of the meta. I could probably come up with a bit of a system that makes sense for the way my files are.
Right. It's also in the announcement, they also said we're releasing Claude's constitution in full under a Creative Commons CC 1.0 deed. So it can be freely used by anyone for any purpose without asking permission. So you could literally take the document and say, let's personalize this. Right.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Right. I mean, you don't have to reinvent the wheel because Claude Code is already running on that constitution, right? So but there's probably some smaller, simpler, makes sense for me versus slightly different for you, Beth or Andy, right? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Your example of, which folders to provide access to, and Anthropic says as you're implementing Claude Code, remember that any folder that you give Claude access to will allow Claude to write and change those files, delete those files, as part of its ability as your assistant to, manipulate and improve, presumably. But it could also make a mistake and damage those files. But I have so much confidence in Anthropic and its constitutional approach that I spent about 3 minutes thinking about, okay, well, what is my file structure on this machine and which ones do I want to give? And I finally just said, okay, you got the home directory. That's the little squiggly thing. And you can touch anything on my machine.
Yeah.
So I gave it full permission, and that was a lot easier than going about this structured approach to saying, okay, I'm only going to give Claude Code access to this folder and work only in that folder. I wanted to be able to look at everything there because I don't even know what's there. So I have to ask Claude Code to tell me, okay, what is in the file structure on this machine?
Yeah, listen, and I'll give you a good example. I have not tried this, so I have no idea if this is going to work, but it was just a thought I had was, number one, as I migrate from machine to machine over years, I have backups of backups, and there's the duplications are probably bonkers, and I'm sure OneDrive and Google Drive are none too are thrilled. I'd rather not happy that I haven't cleaned up my mess because I just pay for more and more data. And they're like, "Do you want to upgrade to 10 terabytes because you're an idiot?" And then you're like, "Yeah, okay, fine. It's easier than fixing it. I'll just pay the extra $10 a year." Gemini's like, "Great," or not Gemini, but Google's like, "Great." So obviously there's some fixing and some cleaning up to do, and I know Cloud Code can help there. Where I'm curious, because I have no idea if this will work or not, is I have a terabyte drive, an old HP terabyte drive. They used to have some software to it, and a long time ago, I lost access to be able to retrieve the files on there. I don't really think it's broken. I think if I had given it to somebody who had some other tools, on there. And I think there's some old pictures on there and stuff like that I'd like to be able to recover. It kind of goes back probably 20 years. And so it fires up and all that. And so I want to plug it in and sick Claude Code on it and see if Claude Code can retrieve the file structure. Mm-hmm. And if it can, figure out how to do it.
That's a great use case.
Cool use case.
You don't have the access to them anyway, right? Like do stuff. Don't do
yeah. It's I have a brick is what I have. I have a heavy old school 1 terabyte brick. Because when I was over in Iraq, used to that was the easiest way to trade files because everybody was ripping Haji movies and stuff like that or whatever. I gotta check that and see if that's an okay term to say anymore. I'm gonna be out with powwow and stuff. I gotta double check that. We used to call them the Haji movies. I don't know if that's politically correct, but that was the term used. I hope I didn't offend anybody with that. That's what they called the shops there. But regardless, the all the pirated movies and stuff like that, which were all the Iraqis came on our bases and gave us all that stuff, right? It was that's how you would see the latest movies that came out. So you would have these huge terabyte drives of. And that might be what's on there, of which case I could care less. Like it's Top Gun or something like that. And I don't want it, So it's I'm like, but also are there some cool photos on there from the past or whatever? So I'm looking to do that. Real quick update for me. I'll throw it in as the news because I don't want to get into a deep conversation about it. And I know we had a little bit more of a conversation on a different topic, but just on the Claude Code front, traveling yesterday, day before, working on this project. I started on Saturday. Today is Thursday. So let's just say I'm on day 5 because I haven't really done much with it today. And what I will say with Claude Code is it's not perfect. Despite very good project requirement documents and stuff, I can already tell lots of lessons learned here when I'm done about how to be even more specific, how to put even more checkpoints in there. It builds and builds and builds, and it can make it feel very just like Lovable or anything else. It can give you a warm, gooey sense of things are happening, man. Things are moving. We're building empires here, and not in a Chat GPT syncophatic type of you're so brilliant or anything like that. It's not really that. It's just you're watching things happen in front of you, and you go, "Oh my God!" And it's giving you structures, and it's saying, "I'm moving this file, and I'm deleting that," and it's showing you all the code. And if you just watch it, it's kind of like watching, Matrix, right? It's just tons of stuff's going on. And although it asks you as much as you want to be asked, do you approve of this or whatever? Oftentimes it's do you want to give access to some random bash file that I wouldn't know what it does one way or the other? So you just say yes, right? Or at least I do. And so anyway, my update is just that it's still going in the right direction. I think we're at a point where we've reached another testing phase on this particular project. I have a local host set up so I can see the website. I can manipulate it. I can move it, but it's curious because the last thing I had to do to try to help me out is actually had to create me Andy, I want to share with Beth too, but Andy, I know you'll appreciate this, a big flow chart of the entire process. It's super long in Lucid Chart because I wanted to visually see if all the checkpoints were being marked. And when it first did it, I once again found things that were being skipped over, but I know it was covered. And so now I'm like, why? Why was that missed, even though it was clearly part of the original architecture and design? And I don't really have an answer for it other than to say there's got to be some lessons learned here about how I'm either setting this up or maybe additional original files with original scope in them, which there is, But I've had to have Claude go back a couple of times and say, you need to go back and review the original scoped process here, because we've left the building a little bit, and you're building, but I don't think we're still on the same train tracks. You've gotten on a different pit of train tracks than me, and that's hard to watch and hard to. Am I on the same train tracks? Are we going parallel? Did I leave the train? And like, there's just a lot there. And I don't have the answer to any of this. It's a process. I do love working with it. And I do think there's something great that'll come out of this, but it has not been all like, and to be fair, it's new, but it's several months new. It has not been all super easy either. So that's where I'm at on it. That's the quick update from me is, more to come, but not exactly where I thought we'd be already. I guess I got false hope that we were faster than we are.
It's in contrast to the reported accomplishments of major players out there. Say, I teed up Claude Code, and 5 hours later I had this massive project complete. That's not the experience I have or that you have. Go ahead,
Andy. Sorry.
No, you.
So it's interesting because every incorporated, every .to is their website. They're doing a live build day. They started at the same time that we did, but they're having people build live with how they are building things. So it's people like Logan Fitzpatrick, I think is his last name, from originally OpenAI, and then now in charge of dev relations at Google for Gemini. And then the Every team and a couple other people that I recognize the names, but I don't know where they're from. But I think we need to remember that vibe coding was coined by Andre Karpathy, right? Who could totally look at the stream and be like, it was vibe for him, maybe, right? But it's maybe a little less vibey for people who don't recognize what the code looks like and how it's going.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Beth, because that was sort of the main thing I just wanted to do today. Is I just don't think vibe coding is the right term. It's a fun term. It makes it feel fun. But as I have worked with Claude Code over the last 5 days, that's not what I'm doing. That's just not what I'm doing. I don't think either of those words apply to what's going on. What I'm doing is working with a AI tool that has agentic capabilities in the terms of it can go off and perform the steps. And I am more like a project manager overseeing a project that I'm not fully involved in. I know what the end result needs to look like. I'm fully aware of the people we have in play working on it, a la Claude Code, or multiple different sub-agents. So maybe there's several Go workers if we were to put the typical, business office spin on it. But I'm not coding. And as far as the vibe side of it, I suppose so. But it is much, much more rigid and business case oriented. If you are a project manager, if you understand that, if you understand scrums and 2-week sprints, and or even if you go back and you're a black belt or whatever, I bet you would crush on Claude Code, because I bet you come in with a set of knowledge that I can't necessarily say I have. But for scrum masters and people who do this stuff and they know how to set up and run a 2-week sprint efficiently, I bet you they have the knowledge base to set up Claude Code for better success than I do. I'm almost positive of it. So that to me is what's actually happening.
Well, let's stratify the kinds of application development that can be done with Claude Code and or any of the other vibe coding type platforms. Meaning you can just I think the vibiness of it is that you're just talking to an assistant and there's a dialogue, a conversation back and forth. You can ask questions midstream and so on, so that you're more in a conversation and it feels good than banging out characters on a keyboard. So for most people, they'll be very satisfied with vibe coding experience because they're not doing anything nearly as complex and at the edge of AI capability as you're building, Brian.
Mm.
The thing that you're building isn't out there, even among the major players in startups who have, provided tools for this kind of application. It
Yeah,
hasn't been done yet. So you're doing something that will run into roadblocks, from your perspective.
sure. Yeah,
Why? Because it's piecing together a bunch of different capabilities in a very specific way to achieve product application features and functions that are not simple. These are not simple things that you're building. Whereas if you want to build a website, you can
yeah,
talk to Claude Code and it'll be done in 10 minutes
yeah.
building your website.
No, you're right.
That's a totally different scale of endeavor. So
Right.
kudos to you that you've only now gone on iteration number 2, where you're kind of doing your reset and restarting a little bit and going back to first order instructions to Claude Code in order to get it to amend and revise what it's already done in order to meet the original specifications that you had in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I hope it's yeah, Gareth, you're right. You're working with a junior developer. That's what Gareth said. Yeah, you're right. And, you know what? That's great because I can't afford a junior developer, so I have Cloud Code, right? So like it's like that's amazing because you're both right, and this would not happen without this tool. Or I mean, I did start an N8N and got pretty far, but what I'm building now, I mean, just leaves N8N and what I built there in the dust. It also leaves what I was building over in Lovable in the dust. Because Claude Code was able to connect through multiple different APIs. I mean, we're now up to like 6 or something like that, where it's pulling in different tools for different jobs and communicating in the right way. Also, it does do flawless things. Like I ran into a problem where I needed to convert MP4 to MP3, and that was a simple ask and about a 3-minute fix in Claude Code to work. And I'm like, that's fast. That's awesome, because like I identified it as a problem. It was going to run up against a timeout issue, which is something I deal with a lot in this particular project, or timeouts and file sizes and things like that. And I needed to convert something to an MP3 from an MP4. And it was a simple ask to say like, this needs to happen. And it was able to, it was like, okay, let's make that phase 6. I was like, let's do it. And it just went off on its happy way. And then it gives you the checklist, which I love. It does give you the checklist, and it's like, this is what we accomplished. And, what's also great is, yeah, it's Claude Code, but you can go back and just be with it with Claude and just be like, stop for a second. And I don't want you to build anything. I just want you to explain to me, in my case, where these two different, not phases, but these two different pieces of a very long workflow. I mean, it's like really long. How they accomplish a certain goal. And then I was also able to just do simple things like, okay, stop. If you're telling me with full confidence that if I put in these 5 search criteria, that this system that you built will in fact produce that. And here's the rub, right? It will go through, and it is told me just as of this morning, you are production ready. That's what it told me this morning. I have heard that 3 other times in the last 5 days. And so what is production ready? Are we in agreement on that? So anyway.
So that's interesting. And the Gareth thing saying you're working with a junior developer is one of the reasons that I am using the compound engineering plugin from Every, because that was designed to be your senior developer. And so it breaks things down into a to-do list, right? So you're not doing a bunch of things at the same time. You're doing things at the same time, but you're not like you're checking off the individual functions that need to occur, right, in a way that makes sense. And the other thing is that this really is you're having a conversation with whatever model you've chosen. You should be choosing Opus. I think all of us are choosing Opus 4.5. But yeah, I mean, it's the same Claude that you're working with through, and you are working with it through a browser. You're not doing the command line interface.
That's correct.
So,
Yeah. So you're talking about having plugins and MCPs. I don't have that. I mean, I could if I just chose to go through the terminal and do it through Cursor, but I've just found that I've gotten really, really far using CoWork through desktop, and there's just no doubt about it. It's a kinder, nicer interface. CoWork is the next iteration of that. I don't really need what CoWork gives, which is more like pull in, progress charts and things like that. I'm totally fine with what Claude Code gives me, but yes, I do love having it in the on the desktop as opposed to the terminal.
but you still have slash commands, I think, right? So if you do slash plan or slash,
yes, you do have slash commands on there. Yeah.
So you may be able to install things. You may, because these are just other. They're just other slash things, but
if there are other documents, yes. I mean, that's what I did with Ralph, right? I literally pointed it at a document and said, "This is what Ralph does. Create me a local version of it," and it did. So there's always that too, right? You go like, "Here's the crux of what this thing does and how it helps break down the process," and then I just tell Claude Code like, "Make me one for this project that it just does."
You pointed at the repo. This is the compound engineering repo.
Oh. Yeah.
You do the thing that you should do.
Yeah.
So I
forgot about the repos, pointing it at the repos. By the way, Andy, you had asked about this. I didn't know Claude Code Desktop could do this, but because I don't have the Claude Chrome extension loaded, but it did open up. It asked me first, but it did open up Superbase and actually went right to the website that.
Nope. Sorry.
That's okay. It went right to the website, and then for one weird reason, it stopped and was like, "Well, I can't do it." But it had actually gone through, copy pasted it, and clicked one button. So I was like, it was weird because it stopped itself and then was like, "Well, I don't have the Chrome extension." I'm like, "No. I just watched you open up a new browser window, paste." And click a button, and then it was like Claude caught itself and was like, "I don't think I'm supposed to be here." And I was like, "No, I told you could be there." But then it was like, "You don't have the Chrome extension." I was like, "I just watched you do this." So it was weird. Right. It did like 3 steps of it and then stopped.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
those are some of the hidden capabilities under the hood. But once you add the Chrome extension, then I've found that Claude CoWork and Claude Desktop can take actions on the web for me. Yeah, and that's basically replaced Comet as a separate browser that has an agentic capability built into it. That's from Perplexity Comet. Let me just weave a little bit off of this Claude Code conversation and say that they're one of the major players that's involved in the consortium of companies that's sort of focusing on the MCP oriented agentic coding kind of approach to agentifying or automating the interwebs is a company called Block, which has the payment system Square. And they've released Goose, which is a free open source coding agent that runs locally and can use multiple LLMs. So you would have to use APIs, I think, to do that. But I haven't tried Goose yet. So it includes OpenAI's models, Anthropic's models, and DeepSeek. So you have a selection of models there while using it. And it lets developers, like you're doing with Claude Code, automate coding tasks and build apps through prompts without having to pay a subscription fee. Mm-hmm. And so those of you who are thinking about going to Claude Code, I still heartily encourage you to support Anthropic in its noble approach to the AI internets and pay $20 a month to have access to Claude, Pro account. And in that, then you get everything that we've been describing here as well. But if you're really trying to economize or you're interested and curious, go check out Goose. I haven't done it myself, but Goose is making some waves out there as an alternative to Claude Code. And it's just been released as a free open source coding agent.
And the company behind it is owned by Jack Dorsey, or Jack Dorsey is associated with it of Twitter.
I think that's right. He owns a big piece of it. and he's the CEO of Block Square and was previously the CEO of Twitter as well.
Right.
Mm. He gets his hands in a lot of cool things. I always like seeing what Jack
Yeah.
Dorsey gets up to. You know, he's like sort of a serial entrepreneur, and obviously has had exits where he has enough money to not really worry about a roof over his head, so he can do some fun things. You know, geez, I was just about to say something on that. Oh, I was just going to say really quick that, you know, you can see it in my title there for anybody watching. It says AI Ops Lead, because that's actually going to be my new role and title at Scaled. And so I'm moving into a new position where I don't have to build all the things, and I don't have to be the AI consultant or the AI strategist on all the projects. We've grown too big. We're doing too many AI products now. It's Scaled after 3 years of solid grinding to get it out there. Either the market is caught up to us, or we finally found the right way to talk to the market. And I'm sure it's a little bit of both. But one of the things that will be part of this new role is more in QA and overseeing what's going out the door and getting a little bit of quality assurance and QA across what's going out, because you get lots of hands in the cookie jar. You know, I don't know if that's the right way to say it. You get a lot of people baking cookies, and some people are baking square cookies, some people are cookies, and people are like, these are good chocolate chip cookies. You're like, yeah, but they should all be one size and shape that we agree on. Not everybody gets to bake their own kind of cookies. You know, like that's not what we're doing here. This is still a business. We're still delivering products to people. And as we grow, there is a need now to make sure that there's some sort of continuity across it. I say all that to say that one of the things that I've already told my new boss about is that I will be absolutely requesting, you know, Claude Max, you know, $200 a month. And I was like, I don't see how Scale does not get their money back month over month over month over month, because there's no reason why between Whisperflow and Claude Code on the Max plan for Scaled that I can't do some really amazing things. And I've already sort of teed that up with them. So I fully expect this to be a tool that I use daily, I would say, in the new role as I look to operationalize, as I look to templatize the things that we're doing and get a little bit more consistency and playbooks. I would say I'm doing a lot of playbooks, which is like really why AI Ops, I think, is the right term for it. You know, Rachel Woods is the person that I think is pretty much championed that term. She's the one I know that says it a lot. And, you know, if you listen to Rachel, then you're listening to her talk about it's playbooks, and it's, you know, how you make AI into a buildable, repeatable thing. And, you know, the thing that's on my mind the most is in my time with Scaled is, you know, I've worked really hard to get where we are in 3 years. How do we make sure that the next 10 years scales at whatever scale Scaled wants to scale?
Say that 12 times fast, huh?
Super easy.
How much scale could a Scale team scale?
Yeah.
If scale teams could scale.
Not the other company Scale, but Scaled with a K, also known as Scaled, as we have people say to us sometimes. All right, are you guys cool with wrapping up, or do you have anything else you wanted to hit today?
Let's wrap.
Yeah, let's wrap it. All right. Hey, everybody, have a wonderful day. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday. Don't forget, on Saturday we have our normal show tomorrow. I'm going fast. Saturday we have our conundrum. I always think the conundrums are good, but this conundrum is interesting because it's about what you want when you're using AI versus what you want everybody else have. And do you want, you know, when it's your AI, you want it to be able to go and disrupt the industry. When it's everybody else, you want it to have some sort of governance to it and perhaps have some overlying structure, because you don't want to find out that it can overrun your AI with a bunch of its AI. So it's an interesting conundrum. Where is the line? Because it's when it's your thing, you want to disrupt. And when it's everybody else, you want to go, whoa, we should have some rules about the playing structure here. And so that's what the conundrum kind of gets into. And I find that to be a very, very interesting, very, very pertinent conversation. So that'll be coming out on Saturday. And of course, we'll have the newsletter on Sunday. How do you get them? Well, you just go to our podcast platforms for the conundrum. So pretty much anywhere, like not YouTube, but it'll be on Spotify, Apple, and all the other places our RSS feed takes us on the podcast side. And then for the newsletter, you can go to thedailyAIshow.com and sign up for it there. It goes out at 8 a.m. on Sunday mornings. And those are the things. So we'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day. Bye.